Exodus 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, "This month is to be for you the first month of your year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people there are. You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect, and you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. Then they are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs, and bread made without yeast. Do not eat the meat raw or boiled in water, but roasted over a fire, with the head, legs, and internal organs. Do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. On that same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. This is a day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. For 7 days you are to eat bread made without yeast. On the first day remove the yeast from your houses, for whoever eats anything with yeast in it from the first day through the 7th must be cut off from Israel. On the first day hold a sacred assembly, and another one on the 7th day. Do not work at all on these days, except to prepare food for everyone to eat. That is all you may do. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread, because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. In the first month you are to eat bread made without yeast, from the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day. For 7 days no yeast is to be found in your houses, and anyone, whether foreigner or native-born, who eats anything with yeast in it must be cut off from the community of Israel. Eat nothing made with yeast. Wherever you live, you must eat unleavened bread. Then Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go at once and select the animals for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood in the basin, and put some of the blood on the top and on both sides of the door frame. None of you shall go out of the door of your house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and sides of the door frame, and will pass over the doorway, and he will not permit the destroyer to enter your houses and strike you down. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you, as he promised, observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, 'What does this ceremony mean to you?' then tell them, 'It is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt, and spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians.' Then the people bowed down and worshipped. The Israelites did just what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as you have said, and go, and also bless me." The Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, "we will all die." So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. The Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they asked for, so they plundered the Egyptians. The Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. Many other people went up with them, and also large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. With the dough the Israelites had brought from Egypt, they baked loaves of unleavened bread. The dough was without yeast because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves. Now the length of time the Israelites' people lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions left Egypt. Because the Lord kept vigil that night to bring them out of Egypt, on this night all the Israelites are to keep vigil to honor the Lord for the generations to come. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "These are the regulations for the Passover meal. No foreigner may eat it. Any slave you have bought may eat it after you have circumcised him, but a temporary resident or a hired worker may not eat it. It must be eaten inside the house. Take none of the meat outside the house. Do not break any of the bones. The whole community of Israel must celebrate it. A foreigner residing among you who wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover must have all the males in his household circumcised. Then he may take part like one born in the land. No uncircumcised male may eat it. The same law applies both to the native-born and to the foreigner residing among you." All the Israelites did just what the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, and on that very day the Lord brought the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions.
Okay, this is a long chapter, and we have many things to explain. And for the next few chapters, there will be talk on the Passover, and we'll be spending quite a few weeks talking about this festival called the Passover. Before I start asking questions, I just want to let you know the structure. The next 4 chapters, we're starting tonight with chapter 12, okay? And we have studied 11 chapters of Exodus. The first 11 chapters are kind of like an introduction to the whole story of the Exodus. And it's the background, it's the people who are involved, it's how God it was building up the scene, so to speak. And over the 11 chapters, we've learned many things about God. God said, "I will teach Pharaoh and Egypt many things about me, so that they will know me, so that they will see what I do and understand my power." So the first 11 chapters has been chapter after chapter of God's doing and His character and the way He gives instructions to Moses and Aaron to be given to the people of God. And we have seen that God was not speaking just to Israel that you are mine, but the instructions. Remember, there was one plague, one disaster that God sent, and He gave warning that if you take your cows into your shelter, it will all be spared from that hailstone. And the Egyptians, some of them believed, and some of them were spared. So this is a story of God telling the Egyptians and the Israelites, "Obey me and you will be saved." So now tonight we start with chapter 12. Chapter 12 will be the beginning of a story of how God then took the people of Israel, called the Israelites, out of Egypt into another country and gave them a country of their own. So verses 1 to 28 of chapter 12 we begin with instructions for the departure. Okay, so don't worry, I'll explain unleavened later. So the first 28 verses, God gives instructions for the journey. Like Yuki, for example, just came from Tokyo to Toronto. She landed on Wednesday, but she books a ticket in Tokyo, and then the travel agent will give her instructions of when to join the aeroplane, what baggage to carry, and all that. So instructions have to be given before you travel. So chapter 12 verses 1 to 28 would be instructions from God on the travel you're going to spend. But more importantly, God says, what happens tonight will be something I want you to remember forever. And so they are instructions on what to do for the rest of your history as the people of God. So chapter 12 verses 1 to 28, you have instructions for the Passover, which is what this event will be called. And then verses 29 to 42, you have the narrative. The narrative means the story, right? So you have instructions. You have instructions for the Passover. And then you have narrative, the story. So chapter 1 begins with instructions, then the story continues. Then verses 43 to 49 of chapter 12, there is a set of instructions again. Okay, so 43 to 49 instructions for the Passover. Then chapter 12 verse 50, the return back to the story, just for one line. And then chapter 13 verses 1 to 16, instructions for the Passover again. And then chapter 13 verse 17 to chapter 14 verse 31, the narrative continues. And then we go into chapter 15. Verses 1 to 18 is a song. Because they have been delivered by God, so they were singing and dancing, so there is a song recorded, verses 1 to 18. And then the rest of chapter 15 from verse 19 onwards, the narrative continues. So you see a kind of a multi-layered sandwich, yeah? Instruction, story, instruction, story, instruction, story, instruction, story. Now in my country, we have a cake we call kueh lapis. Kueh is cake. Lapis means layers. And those of you who are Malaysians, Singaporeans and Indonesians, you know what I mean. The kueh lapis, layer after layer. They bake one thin layer, then wait for it to dry, cool down, and then they put another layer and they bake it again, and then they wait for it to cool down, and then it is many layers. And it's a very expensive cake because of the labor. Yeah. So this is and it's a very lovely cake. I love it. Yeah. But because of the many beautiful layers of hard work in it. So here we have a multi-layered cake God is preparing. Instruction story, instruction story, instruction story. Why do you think this is done this way? Why didn't God say, these are the instructions, finish. Okay, now tell the story. So why is it this sandwich like that?
To give them more.
He has to give them more and more instructions. There's too many instructions, so he gives a little bit at a time. You think that's the answer?
To remind
Hmm?
To remind them.
To remind them again and again, so the teacher keeps on saying, okay, this is the lesson, okay, now this is the lesson again. Raymond?
So do you find the instructions more easily because everywhere?
Okay, they find the instructions more easily because it's all over the place.
So you don't just give the instructions and just read the story? You read everything?
So
Examples?
The examples.
Give the story as an example.
The story is an example. In other words, he's saying the instructions interweave with the story as illustration, right? Story, instruction, illustration. Application. Yeah. Caris.
He was trying to have a relationship with them, maybe teaching.
So he was trying to have a relationship with them, so he gives an instruction, and there is an application. The story happens. So it's not just theory in class, it happens on the ground. Okay, there's all these reasons. One, of course, it's a very important festival. It is to be remembered for the rest of their history, not just the rest of their lives, but the rest of the history of the people of God. So God says, this is so important, I want to keep telling you. So by telling you many times, you will remember. By telling you in small little sections, you will remember and chew better. And sometimes when I eat this cake, I peel off a layer at a time, you know. It's so fun, but it's also, it stretches the enjoyment. And I think that's how a story is told, okay? The story of the Exodus of God can be told in an interesting way, and I think the storyteller is telling us in an interesting way, just like the multi-layered cake. You can take off one layer at a time and enjoy it slowly. Yeah? So I think there are all these reasons, and therefore you find not only that it is many layers, but many chapters talking about the same thing. We modern people, you know, we have very little time, and we want everything to be explained to us in 5 seconds, right? And a YouTube clip, if you are longer than 3 minutes, nobody watch, right? And so, you know, we live in a fast-moving society. We cannot wait. So I think right in the beginning, God knows that we have very short attention span. So He gives you one instruction, and then tell story, instruction again, tell story, and you see the story come to life. The instructions come to life. Let me start now with the explanation of the different instructions here. Let's just look again now, not at verses 1 to 10, but at verses 1 to 20. Okay, so we take a bigger portion. Verses 1 to 20. Verse 2. This month is for you the first month of your year. Now, the month that we are talking about is the month of Abib. Okay? Abib. Right? You see that mentioned? This is the month of Abib. In our calendar, it is March and April.
Not V, A-V-I-V.
A-V-I-V?
Aviv, yeah. A-V-I-V.
A-V-I-V.
Aviv, yeah.
Aviv is the modern Israeli pronunciation.
Oh.
Abib is the biblical Hebrew pronunciation.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. This character was pronounced B in the Bible, but in modern Hebrew it's pronounced V. So, but it's the same. It's Abib, Aviv or Abib. So this month, the name of this month is March or April, and this is the month of the barley harvest. So they harvest the barley and make it into bread. So the bread they're making, the dough they're making is actually from barley bread. It's not very nice bread actually. Wheat bread is nicer. But here we have the month of March. In our Canadian calendar, March is not the new year. January is the new year. In the Hebrew calendar, before the day of the Exodus, the first month of their calendar was actually a month called Tishri. And Tishri is September, October. And the first day of the new year, the Jews call it Rosh Hashanah. Okay? It means head of the year. Rosh, head, Hashanah, the year. Head of the year, Rosh Hashanah, September. This year it was September 24th. Sunset 24th. To sunset September 25th, I think. So Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, like our 1st of January. Alright? Now, so today the Jews still celebrate Tishri, Rosh Hashanah. So why did God tell Moses, now Abib is your New Year? What do you think? They already have a New Year in September. And God says, no. Now your New Year is March. What is God telling them?
Out of slavery.
Set free,
This-
they were set,
Out of slavery.
You're going out of slavery.
set free, they were
You're set free on this day. This is your new
New life.
beginning, your new life, your new beginnings. So it's like many of us, we become Christians, we may have a real birthday, maybe it's July, and then we find Jesus in the middle of the winter, December. So that's our new life. It's the beginning of a new life. It's a new spiritual birth. So God is telling them, whatever new year you have, now this is the real beginning of your new life. It's the beginning. A bit. So today the Jews will celebrate 2 New Years. This is the religious New Year. Today they call it Nisan, a new name. Because after the exile, they went to Babylon, and Babylonians call it Nisan, so they adopted that into the Hebrew language. So the month is called Nisan. It used to be called Abib. Abib was the name that was used by the Canaanites. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the people of God adopting harmless cultural things from the culture around them, right? God tells us that whatever the cultures around us produce, if it's ungodly, against God's rules, we reject them. But cultures that are harmless, like a calendar, what's harmful about calendar? You can follow it, you can use it. So as a Chinese, for example, after I became a Christian, I still celebrate Chinese New Year. I even celebrate the way we have red lanterns and red curtains and whatever, because as long as it's not a religious item that can be used to for worship, then it's okay with me. So I would not use joss sticks, because we have joss sticks and then we put it in a joss stick bowl that's no more in my house, or anything that I would associate with going against God. For example, there is a Chinese calendar, but there is also the Chinese zodiac. Yeah, the animals. Are you a pig? Are you a horse? And all that. No, I'm a human being. Yeah, because that zodiac is based on the belief that your life is governed by the stars. And the stars, you're born under the star or the horse year, the constellation. Therefore, you are governed, your whole life is governed by that star. No, my life is governed by God.
I have a question about that. I've heard that God created all the universe, and there is a connection between the universe and us. It's a
Sure.
godly.
There is a connection between the universe and us, but the universe doesn't control our life. It's God that controls our life. So the star doesn't dictate what will happen in my life. It's God who dictates what happens in my life. So stars, God says actually in Deuteronomy, don't worship stars and don't tell your future by stars. The stars don't tell your future. Okay? Now I used to read in the newspapers, you're born in this month, you're Cancer, you're born in this month, Libra, Aquarius, and so on. I used to read, but now I don't, because sometimes it's for fun, I don't believe in it. But you find that when it comes onto your mind, it continues to bother you. And I tell you, one of the things that bothered me for a long time, and it's not about stars, but it's the same thing about fortune telling. My friend, in high school, we were all friends. We were all laughing and maybe bluffing each other. And I think I was about 16 years old at that time. My friend looked at me and says, "Oh, I can read your life on your hand." I said, "Oh, sure, go ahead and read." And, "Oh, you are, this line means you are very clever." Hey. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then, this line here. This line here is very short. This is a lifeline. Oh, you have a short life. Short life? When will I die? I think it's about 40 years old. I wasn't a Christian. I was 16 years old. I couldn't be bothered, yeah? And then I became a Christian at 21. I was still not bothered. And I know I'm not supposed to believe in lifelines and stars and all that. And then I'm 30 years old. I'm still not bothered, And then I am 39.
1 more year.
And 1 year when I was 39 years old, I'm telling myself I'm a Christian. I cannot believe in this. But no, I'm not going to die when I'm 40. No. God was in charge of my life. you start thinking about it even though you don't want to think about it. Or you read your your Cancer or Libra or Aquarius or whatever, it says, today you will be sorry. Sorry for what? Sorry for what? And you're looking everywhere and you're looking there and the car is coming this way. You will be sorry. Okay, so don't go into those things.
Today you have
Don't go into those things. Okay, avoid them. So God says very clearly in Deuteronomy, if you want to turn with me, chapter 18, verse 9. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. So don't learn the hateful ways of the cultures who are there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire. In Canaan, they worshipped their gods, and one of the ways they worshipped the gods was they take the babies and then burn them. So God says, don't do that. So, let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery. Okay, witchcraft is another name for sorcery. Divination is fortune telling. Don't practice fortune telling, whether it is feng shui or cards or finger or tea reading or palm reading, all kinds of things. They read your palm, they read your coffee, they read your tea. There are all kinds. There are all kinds. They read. Yeah. So all these things are divination, and God says no divination, no sorcery. Yeah, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. There are people who pray to the dead and say, please give me some information about my future. Please give me 4 numbers for the lottery. Yeah. 6 numbers, is it? Whatever, yeah. So these are things that humankind has been practicing for a long, long time, and God says, don't do that. Don't do that. Why? Because all these things don't control your future. God controls your future. And God says, why are you turning to these things that don't tell you about your future? Ask me, I will tell you your future. So instead of, it's like, I'm a professor, I've been a professor for 30 years. And can you imagine if I have a class and tomorrow is the exam, and the professor says tomorrow's exam will be, the instructions are on my website. Go look up my website. And Lenny decides, no, she won't want to look at my website. She go and ask her husband, hey, Albert, what's on for the exam tomorrow? And Albert, oh, it's like that, this like that. There are people who would prefer to listen to another source than to the real source. So God is saying, you want to know your future? Come to me, I'm the real source of your future. Don't go ask Albert or anybody else. Don't ask the stars, don't ask the tea leaves or coffee leaves or whatever, yeah? Okay, so no divination, no witchcraft, no fortune telling, and zodiac, stars and all that is fortune telling. And of course, God says also not to consult the dead. Now the medium, engaging the medium or spiritist. There are people who say, I am a medium, that means I'm a messenger between this monkey god and you. Now in Singapore we have a lot of temples like that, monkey god temple, and so on, and snake temple and so on, and there will be a human being there who says, I am the messenger between you and the snake god or the monkey god. So talk to me. That's a medium. Okay? Don't talk to mediums. And I tell you, some of these things are very real, because I told you some of the story. I grew up next door to a temple. In fact, there were 2 or 3 temples in my neighborhood. I was right next door to a temple. And you are a child, you go and take a look, peek, and very curious, right? And I have seen this medium. People come to him and say, I'm sick, please pray for me. And he will say, okay, I'll pray for you. And then give me an amulet. Amulet. Okay? What is an amulet? Not ambulance. Okay? Amulet.
An object that used to give you to
Good
be
luck.
lucky.
Yeah, an object that will give you good luck.
Oh, like the green. That
Green
they-
or blue or yellow, whatever.
they
Yeah.
put as a-
Or they write a piece of paper and you burn it, you put it in the water and you drink. Now, talisman is another name for that. Okay, talisman. They give you a good luck charm. So the medium would write on a piece of yellow paper some good luck words or whatever from his monkey god or snake god or whatever. And how he does it, he takes a sword, cuts his tongue, takes a brush, uses the blood to write the amulet. And then he says a few things, the tongue is healed, there is no more blood, no more wounds, nothing. It's scary. How does he have that power? God says, because the evil one, Satan, the devil gives him that power. His power will not be as great as God's power. So don't worry about evil spirits, don't worry about devil, don't worry about mediums like that, because if you believe in God, God is stronger than any evil spirit out there. Any demon, any witchcraft, nothing at all. Don't have to worry. So here is a warning from God. Don't deal with those things. Deal directly with God.